Welcome back to our fourth week of the Scaffolding Learning course. The focus of this week is on scaffolding language. We'll get to that later in this video. But first, let's go back to Flipgrid and say hello to our fellow classmates.
Hi everybody, my name is Maggie Whitcomb. I am a middle school science teacher in Hudson, Massachusetts. This year I am teaching about 100 students, of which 20% are English language learners. And one thing that I think makes me stand out from all of you is that I don't come with a background for teaching English language learners. So I am hoping to gain a lot of great ideas from all of you, while hopefully being able to contribute some of my perspective being the content teacher. A fun fact about me is that when I'm not in the classroom, I am running around with my own two daughters, which is where you find me today. It happens to be volleyball practice, so making the most of my time on the sidelines. Hoping to learn a lot with all of you, and thanks for what you've already shared about yourselves. Bye.
Hi, my name is Ryan Moon. I am an ESOL teacher in Berkeley County. I teach kindergarten all the way up through the 12th grade. I apologize. I forgot to charge all of my iPads, so I'm stuck out here with my phone. But the reason why I want to take this course is I want to be able to meet the different needs of all of my students. I have students that are newcomers, as well as some newcomers and intermediate students that are in special education. So I definitely want to try to learn about all of these scaffolds and modifications to make sure that my kids are successful. All right, I look forward to learning from all of you guys. See you later. Bye. How do I stop this?
As of Wednesday night in Canada, I'm in Canada right now, I didn't see any Padlet contributions, which is not a problem. So I'll be sharing a few that we didn't talk about from last week. Donna talked about how when teachers and students learn to... Donna said, when teacher and students learn and teach together, everyone is successful. I agree, and I would add that we're actually more successful when teachers and students learn together. And Mary Wong added this. This is an old idea, but still holds value. Our students come together with their ideas of various colors, textures, and hues to create an image and understanding of a new concept. Their process of sharing parallels that of the weaver, selecting, handling, manipulating threads of ideas. That's right. What a great metaphor. Ryan had this metaphor. It's a ping pong table. Interactive scaffolds are players at a ping pong table. Everyone needs to participate equally and actively in order for the ping pong game to continue. And she was so excited, she added another one. And this one is super creative. Ryan said, I have a brother-in-law that works for a company that creates video games. Each project is divided into different chunks where the professionals do their research and then come together with a presentation for a certain scenario in the game. They bring these into the official project meetings where they refer back to the original script. According to him, sometimes they write down ideas to change the script. The project manager usually does not dominate the discussion, but facilitates the meeting, takes notes, and as the employees all discussing various opinions. What a real-world relevant connection. Thanks, Ryan. This is a cute one too. It's from Erica. She says, interactive scaffolding is like a clothing swap. I chose this image because I was thinking of all the sharing that goes on in interactive scaffolds, like turn and talk and table talk, and you give ideas and take away ideas, just like a clothing swap. This is from Harsha, and she says overflow. If we try to fill a cup with more water than can fit in it, it will overflow. If we do not stop and make sure the students are comprehending the content a little bit at a time, it will overflow, making it harder for them to stay on board with the class. And interactive scaffolding makes sure that students are able to stop and comprehend and construct meaning together. Love that. Thank you, Harsha. If you make contributions next week to graphic scaffolding or language scaffolding, I'll put them up in the next video. As of Wednesday night in Canada, there weren't any reflections from week 3, but that's okay. If you add them to this week's reflections, I will show them to everyone. Thank you. This assignment comes from Rachel Cox. She shared with us something called New York Times Learning Network, and it's about graphs. I want to show you this cool graph. So So this is the one she used, and it's an animated graph, which is even more amazing. Watch this. Isn't this cool? And it's about the average first leaf appearance. Let's watch it again. How cool. Then she said, I noticed that graphs can get students using mathematical and scientific language. My students did not know leaf or average. They needed refresher on seasons, which led to a language-rich tangent when one student said that he thought there should be 5 seasons. We talked about seasons in native countries. If you have not shared with students any of the New York Times Learning Networks, I encourage you to do so. I am going to use this in the future as well. I also love that this was language rich. Even though it was a tangent, it was fine because kids were using mathematical thinking. They were analyzing. They had to infer. They had to read the text. They had to really look at this. I also loved how Rachel said she had kids talk about seasons in their native countries to make it really connected to the lesson, to their culture. How affirming. Thanks for sharing, Rachel. This week, I had the amazing privilege to go to 3 school districts in British Columbia. I got to work with also a participant in our cohort, James and MJ. James is not part of the cohort, but MJ is, and she's an EL teacher who works with James, and I got to work with some of their kids. It was such a great time. In this week's video, we'll explore what some teachers consider the most significant barrier to ELs being successful, the language gap. There's nothing we can do to change the proficiency an EL comes with upon entering our class. Fortunately, we do have strategies that can bridge this gap. Like always, I've created an animated video to describe language scaffolding. Let's watch it. Language scaffolds can refer to any strategies that establish comprehensible input, which is helping ELs understand spoken and written ideas. And 2, to establish comprehensible output, meaning anything we can do to empower ELs to communicate their ideas while writing and speaking. Language scaffolding is like a two-way bridge. We, the text and learning experience, stand at one end of the divide. We then send language at students. ELs stand at the other end. They want to read the text, but they can't read it alone yet. They have ideas, but currently do not possess enough vocabulary to communicate. They want to write their ideas down, but they don't know how to structure them. And linguistic scaffolding can bridge that gap. In this section, I would like to share 7 strategies that establish comprehensible input. The first strategy is using images during content instruction. For teachers that use the lecture model of teaching, the best thing we can do is to use visuals as much as possible during the lecture. I recommend creating a slide presentation that will guide your lecture. On each slide, I recommend doing 3 things. 1, teaching only one concept, topic, detail, event, or phenomenon at a time. 2, writing one sentence that describes that concept. And 3, using an image, diagram, or chart to represent that idea. This way of organizing our slides is EL friendly because it has limited text, one concept taught at a time, and provides an image that links the spoken words to the concept and the text. The second strategy is collaboratively synthesizing content knowledge. If you're lecturing, periodically stop after about 5 minutes of direct instruction. Have students work in small groups or work with a partner to synthesize what you just taught. If you have students who speak the same language, you can even have them synthesize the information together in their home language. In this video, you will see Jamin and Zhang Hong synthesizing what they learned about how self-driving cars use waves as part of a science lesson. Notice how Jamin is using content vocabulary, body language, Google Translate, and even sound effects to help Zhang Hong understand.
Here is on the car, right? This is like that. Car sensor is on the car, and that there is like leather and what is it? Yeah. Detection.
Chinese.
No.
Oh,
Detection.
detection.
Yeah. Detection. The other car will like.
No,
Other
the surrounding.
Yeah, like around, and if car and stop.
Okay.
Yeah, this is car and this is the self-driving car, and this is car and going there and stop. Sensor
Because what?
because the car is
The caster.
yeah, car, because if you go to straight and crash, and the sensor, the detection the car and he stop.
Oh, you mean it's just like the car sensor
Yeah.
system can detection the
The
surround
other car.
the other car in the surrounding.
Yeah, the
Is
other
it
car
correct?
or-
So yeah, you describe self-driving cars. Now, how does it connect to waves?
Waves.
Waves. Oh my god.
Oh, just like they use the waves to find
Yeah.
other car
Yeah, that's right.
or other something
I know something like.
in front of them.
Notice how much more fluent Jamin is in explaining his ideas in Korean than in English. Allowing him to use his Korean helps both him and Jake understand the concept.
지금까지 그 얘랑 나랑 같이 자율주행 자동차에 대해서 얘기를 했어. 근데 그 자율주행 자동차가 그 자동차 센서가 있잖아. 앞에 센서 달려 있잖아. 그러면 만약에 자동차랑 자동차야. 얘가 자율주행이고 얘가 자율주행이 아니야. 근데 얘가 쭉 가다가 앞에 있잖아. 그럼 멈춰야 되잖아. 그러지 않고 센서가 없으면 그냥 쭉 가다가 펑 깨지고 부딪히고 내 예쁘지? 그리고 이 멈추잖아. 센서가 있으면 멈추잖아. 그거 지금 얘기하고 있었어. 그리고 그 센서가 서라운딩을 해가지고 발견하는 거야.
A third strategy is using subtitles. Many teachers use videos to teach. This is a great strategy because it has visuals and can be paused and rewatched by students, which is an advantage over a teacher lecturing live. When I see teachers showing videos, I also recommend turning on the subtitles if they're available. This helps students understand when they don't understand a person due to an accent.
Black holes in a nutshell. A black hole appears when an extraordinary amount of matter is concentrated in a tiny space. At their center, gravity is almost infinitely strong, and whatever gets too close is ripped into its elementary particles. Not even light can escape black holes, and so we perceive them as spheres of blackness. If you were to fall into a black hole, nothing bad would happen until well after you crossed its outer border, the event horizon.
Many videos that teachers use come from YouTube, where you can even change the play speed. Slowing videos down helps students understand the content.
In a river that ends in an enormous waterfall. As you float along, imperceptibly, the stream gets faster and faster.
My favorite feature on YouTube is the ability to have subtitles auto-translated into different languages. When we enable this function, we don't have to provide a different resource that costs us time and energy to select or create. We simply have scaffolded how students access the resource that everyone else is already using. In essence, it helps students feel like they are part of the class, which they are. In this video, Miss Rachel wanted the class to learn how hip-hop evolved as part of the drama unit. Ryan, a Korean student, flipped between English and Korean subtitles to take notes. When teachers lecture or play videos, they are employing passive forms of learning. We don't actually know if students are understanding. Therefore, I recommend having students produce mind maps as they listen to the lecture or the video. If you're giving direct instructions, you can have students stop to draw simple sketches of what was just explained or watch on the video. This is a much more active way of learning content because it requires students to grapple with the information. The sketches add a visual element, and the limited text production doesn't overwhelm students who are learning to write simple sentences. This is a video from Edutopia about why students should be drawing more in your classes. Let's watch it. In addition to lectures and videos, we often ask students to read text. I like having students annotate the text, mainly by summarizing the ideas they've read. I invite them to annotate in any language that they feel comfortable annotating in. This forces students to interact with the text, and they think about what is being presented. Students can even annotate on digital text as well. The act of synthesizing the text in their own words helps them internalize the content. I have students annotate at the end of the paragraph because it encourages them to pause and think about the text, sentence by sentence. Otherwise, they'll just go to the end of the article and say, I don't understand it. Additionally, I encourage students to translate unfamiliar words only, not the entire sentence, not the entire paragraph, and definitely not the entire passage. Writing the words in their own home language is another form of annotating. When students need to go back and reread the text, they have the translations hovering above the English words. The next strategy is graphic organizers. I know you hear this all the time, but ELs need us to model procedures and protocols for them. Seeing a process being modeled is more powerful than hearing it being described. However, some ELs need additional support. For example, a science teacher and I created a lab for students to investigate waves. He provided written instructions and even modeled the investigation. However, it wasn't enough because the process was quite complicated. So he and I worked to create a document that broke down the process into mini steps. For each part of the process, I identified one step, provided an image when possible, gave them a table to record the data, and even provided a space for them to graph the results. When students forgot the instructions, they still had the document to guide their work. The last strategy I want to show you to develop comprehensible input is screencasting instructions. As all teachers know, modeling instruction is more than just a one-time occurrence. There are sure to be several students that need us to model the process again and again and again. Imagine having us to do this again and again when students need it. It's an ineffective use of time. Instead, we can take advantage of technology to help us model instructions. What if you recorded the instructions, gave students access to the content, and let them watch and rewatch the video as needed? A science teacher and I found that students consistently needed us to re-explain the process of creating a graph for a lab report. One day, during co-planning, we decided to do a screen recording of the process. It was easier now to direct students to just watch the video, and we were free to help students do other things. Hi everybody, this is Mr. Tan and Mr. Arno, and we're going to show you how to create a graph using on Google Sheets. So we'll go with the y-axis first. Your y-axis is your dependent variable.
Yes.
It's a thing that you're measuring. So we're going to highlight this first. Insert, chart. We already have a chart type. You're going to go all the way down to scatter. From here, you already have your y-axis. Now it's time to do your x-axis. So x-axis, double click on that, highlight the features that you want, and it'll already present it. So now, it's now time to add If screencasting is not your thing, you could also use Edpuzzle to personalize videos that you find on YouTube or to personalize videos that you have created. Let's watch a quick video from Common Sense.
Ever wish you could make a video more relatable to students? Just play director so that the video was more relevant to them? Edpuzzle allows you to do just that, giving you the advantage of customizing and personalizing videos to promote active viewing. This free web-based tool allows you to crop, annotate, and remix online videos, whether they're for flipped learning, for independent viewing, or for whole group instruction. First, upload your own video or choose from their vast and vetted library. Then have at it. You can crop and splice together the parts of the video you want your students to focus on. Now let's say you just want to reinforce a key point or further explain an idea. Just add your own voice into the mix with audio notes and voiceovers. Check for understanding and get formative feedback by adding polls or multiple choice questions throughout the video. Give visual cues by adding relevant images. Make a cross-curricular connection by linking to related web content. Draw students in deeper with higher order thinking by asking them to make predictions or add their perspectives by embedding questions. For the optimal viewing experience, Edpuzzle allows you to design customized guidance and support for your students. Other excellent video annotation platforms that support active viewing include Zaption, Educanon, and Vialogs. You know your students and their needs the best. With you in the director's chair, make your students star viewers by personalizing and differentiating videos in just a few clicks.
Now I'm going to show you a screen recording of me creating Edpuzzle for my kids in my own class.
என் பேரு உஷா.
பேர் கார்த்திகேயன். முந்திரி பிஸ்னஸ் பண்ணிகிட்டு இருக்கோம்.
இந்த முந்திரி தொழிலில் நானும் என் கணவரும் சேர்ந்து தான் எல்லா வேலையும் 2 பேரும் கலந்து தான் செய்கிறோம். ஒரு சின்ன விஷயமா இருந்தாலும் 2 பேரும் கலந்துப்போம். உங்களை நம்பி தான் நானும் நம்பி அனுப்புறது, அவங்களும் என்னை நம்புவாங்க.
எங்கள் மனைவி இல்லாமல் எதுவும் இல்லை, அவங்க தான் மெயின். அவங்கள எல்லா விஷயத்துலேயும் அவங்கள ஈடுபாடு படுத்தணும். இந்த அளவுக்கு டேலண்ட்டு அவங்கக்கிட்ட இருக்கு. தொழில் உதவில பெண்களும் எந்த மூலம் விட்டு சாப்பிட வேண்டாம் உங்க ஏரியாவில் அவங்களும் எடுக்கணும் இதெல்லாம் இல்லை நீங்கள்
நான் ரெண்டு பேரும் பண்ணல 2 பேரும் சாரி அது எல்லாம் வேலை செய்யுது எங்க கணவர் வந்து மேல சாப்பிட தான் நினைக்கிறேன் அவங்க திரும்பி நினைக்கிறேன் அதான்
Technology cannot replace a teacher, but it can duplicate our efforts. The takeaway here in this section is that instead of us saying in frustration that ELs don't understand the instructions or what we're saying, or they can't understand the text, or they can't read, we can reframe this problem into the question of, how can I scaffold understanding? I hope these strategies have given you more hope that ELs can learn content as long as we can scaffold the language they have to process. For our very beginner ELs, you can use Book Creator to create a content-based book for kids. In this example by Dr. Katie Topol, yes, the legendary Katie Topol. She wanted students to learn about frogs. She created short, content-specific sentences and provided an image for each one. But wait, she did even more. She recorded her reading of sentences out loud. Students can then click on the sentences to practice reading out loud or to hear the text read to them.
I want to show one more really cool feature of Book Creator that I haven't used before, but I just discovered. Okay, go ahead and press erase. If you press the triangle in the corner, it will read it to you and highlight the text.
The penguin has a beak.
So robot voice and my voice.
The penguin has
That's
flippers. Flipper.
How cool is that? So the students can have it read to them with the teacher voice and read to them with the highlights on their own.
Isn't this such a great way to make content comprehensible and scaffold reading skills? In a 5-minute video, she shares how to create a book creator. And in a 27-minute video she created for Virtual Jan'20, a free virtual conference for teachers of ELs, she shows how students use Book Creator to, yes, create their own content-based books as a form of formative assessment of content knowledge, speaking skills, reading skills, and writing skills. It's really worth pausing to watch these videos. These will be shared with you in the resource document.
And put it close to where it is, and then I can do my recording. The penguin has a beak, and put that there. And then if I want every single word, beak, and put that right there so a student can access all of that. And then continue on. There's one other feature I didn't use, but that's on here, is that you can write. So if I wanted to handwrite something, I'm left-handed and I'm doing this with my right hand, so it's messy, but you can have students handwrite the word. That's fine too. And then you can also have students use the camera function so that if for some reason you want your students to make a book, or you want to make a book that has pictures, you could take pictures. So for example, a great book for newcomers would be a book of classroom and school things using actual pictures. So you go in and take a picture of your cafeteria, and then you could type the sentence, "This is the cafeteria." So those are all the functions, super easy, and I hope you try it out.
This is Julie, a teacher who joined us for our first Scaffolding Learning course, and she shared how her students use Book Creator.
What do you call a large pink animal that lives on a farm? A large pink animal that lives on a farm is called a big pig.
What do you call a dog that just had a bath? You call a dog that just had a bath a wet pet. What do you call an Oreo cookie? You call an Oreo cookie a black snack. What do you call a chubby pet that says meow? You call a chubby animal that says meow a fat cat.
If book creator is too intense, you can always use something called ThinkLink. This is a tool that Sherry from the first course of Scaffolding Learning shared with us. You can use a picture and then insert your recording of your voice saying the words, or you could have a picture and have students insert their reading of those words.
Dark black crow. Hard-working farm kid raking leaves. Fluffy cat. Orangey red pumpkins. Yellow sunflowers. White and brown dog. Big red barn.
You know, I like to save my favorite strategy to the end. This language scaffold is both a comprehensible input and output strategy. After reading Carol Selva's Boosting Achievement book and learning about the strategy from her podcast of the same name, I realized how powerful it can be when working with absolute beginners. Like always, I'd like to model the strategy with you instead of talking at you. Okay, please grab your stuff and come to the rug. Today, we're going to watch a short video about using Google Translate, written by 2 teachers working at the International School of The Hague.
Jan'.
Oh!
Who's going to be diving?
Diving with people today, it said before. Yeah. And so he's diving with people today. He's diving with people today. There's a shark.
One. Hippocampus.
A hippocampus. Water something, okay.
Hippocampus.
I think it's broken. Hang on, I'll try again.
Catch a fish.
Ah, okay, so in Howran's story, he's going. Oh! Right, okay.
Inserted into the ice.
So, guys, this is Zihan's story. Okay, so the knife cuts through the ice. They cut a hole in the ice with the knife and put a line down, and it catches a shark, and they're diving with the sharks in the story. Oh, that's awesome. I see exactly what happens in the story. So can we give Zihan a big clap for sharing the story with us? Yeah! That was really cool, man. I like it. Thank you, Miss Suchi.
As we go through the video, I'll stop and write down information from the text. Let's begin.
Zihan.
You write it down. Translate it.
Oh!
Who's going to be diving?
Diving with people today, it said before. Yeah. And
Okay, let's stop here. My sentence that I'm going to give you is, a Chinese student speaks into Google Translate to communicate. I can use that sentence, or you can give me one of your own sentences for me to write up. Let's continue watching.
so he's diving with people today. He's diving with people today. There's a shark.
Okay, let's stop here. The teacher turns the translated ideas into a story. I'm going to write that down, or you can give me your own idea and I'll write it down on our anchor chart. Let's return to the movie.
1. Hippocampus.
A hippocampus. Water something, okay.
Hippocampus.
I think it's broken. Hang on, I'll try again.
Okay, let's pause here. Google Translate is not a perfect translation. That's what I'm going to write down. What sentence can you give me? Okay, we have 3 sentences so far. Let's go back and let's read it out loud. I'll read out loud the sentences for you and then you read with me. A Chinese student speaks into Google Translate to communicate. Great. The next one. The teacher turns the translated ideas into a story. The third one. Google Translate is not a perfect translation. Let's return to our video to watch the final part.
Catch a fish.
Ah, okay, so in Howran's story, he's going. Oh! Right, okay.
Inserted into the ice.
So, guys, this is Zihan's story. Okay, so the knife cuts through the ice. They cut a hole in the ice with a knife and put a line down, and it catches a shark, and they're diving with the sharks in the story. Oh, that's awesome. I see exactly what happens in the story. So can we give Zihan a big clap for sharing the story with us? Yeah! That was really cool, man. I like it. Thank you, Miss Suchi.
Okay, we just finished the video. What sentences can you give me? Okay, I'm going to write this sentence. Google Translate's speech-to-text function allows for students to participate and be included. Now, go back to your desk and retell the story in your own words by writing it down. Make sure to explain why Google Translate is such a powerful tool. For Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars, I want you to copy the story like I have here. Copy the first few words and try to finish the rest of each sentence without looking at the anchor chart. After each sentence, read your writing out loud to practice your reading skills. Okay, so that's the end of the modeling. Let's debrief. Can you pause the video and write down the elements of the language experience approach? Then restart the video again. Here are the elements. 1. Viewing a shared text, preferably a video or an experience such as a field trip or a lab experiment. 2. The teacher can ask the students for information they remember if they have some social language skills. If students do not, the teacher can give students the sentences and writes it down on the anchor chart for students. 3. The teacher has students read out loud the sentences as they are being written. 4. For students with some writing skills, they go back and they can rewrite the story as closely as it is organized on the anchor chart. For students who are developing or complete beginners, they can copy the text. As they copy, they can say the words out loud. Carol Salva is often asked how to teach students with limited or interrupted formal education. Her response is often with the language experience approach. It gets students participating by providing spoken text. These ideas are then written down. If it's provided by students, it's already student-friendly. This strategy also promotes reading skills as students are reading the words that they can say. There are hundreds of ways you can Starbucks this strategy. Please modify it to meet the needs of your ELs. I hope it becomes one of your go-to strategies for absolute beginners. The following set of strategies will promote comprehensible output. My favorite strategy to help ELs produce comprehensible language is the use of sentence starters or sentence frames. Sentence starters provide the first word of a sentence, leaving the tail end to students to fill out on their own. An example from history class might be, the 3 things that people during the Renaissance valued were ... Using the sentence stem empowers ELs to use academic language and guides them closer to the desired answer. For answers that require more sophisticated thinking, I use sentence frames. These are like supercharged sentence starters because they are not only at the start of a sentence, they continue to other segments that require additional responses. For example, we use this sentence frame with students in science class. How does blank affect blank? For the hypothesis section, we offer students the frame if ... then ... because ... In the data analysis section, we provide this sentence. The trend line is students select either increasing or decreasing because. Sentence frames and sentence starters help students sound like scientists, sound like artists, sound like musicians, sound like mathematicians. Through sentence stems and through sentence starters, we teach them the language of the discipline. One of the best strategies that incorporates a sentence starter is QSSSA or QSSSA. Q stands for a question. We first ask students a question. The first S stands for a sentence starter. We provide a sentence starter to help students use academic language and to think about the topic. We give students time to think about the answer using the sentence starter. The next S is signal. We ask them to use a particular signal to show that they have an answer. The signal I like to use the most is the thumb to the chest signal because it's not as distracting as a hand raise. A hand raise signals that, oh, someone else has the answer, or I'm not as smart as others, or I'll just stop thinking. A thumb to the chest is a quiet, non-intrusive signal that allows others think time, which improves the likelihood that more students will have an answer. The last S is share. You can either have a student share or have students share with a partner, and then pick a student to share with the class. The A is for assess, which means to assess their responses. Let's watch this video of me using parts of QSSA with my 5th graders. Okay, so we just did the Pomodoro method. Can you think, what was I trying to teach you, this method? Or how can you use this in the future? Yes, that's the question. How can you use it in the future? I can use the Pomodoro method in the future when I... Think first. When you're ready, go like this. You have an answer. Okay, turn to your partner and stop with this. I can use the Pomodoro method in the future when... Yeah, I can use this in the future when... Yeah, you do work for a long time because it gets exhausting, tired. The next strategy is to incorporate WIDA key uses. WIDA has identified 4 most commonly used actions that teachers ask of students. These are recount or describe, explain why or how something happens, argue an opinion, and discuss ideas with others. We need to make these command terms visible for students because they are interdisciplinary and used with children from primary to secondary schools and beyond. They're truly everywhere. I have created a document that turns these abstract verbs into diagrams to be of support to students. When describing, we have a topic at the center and the traits orbit around the center topic. Each trait has a collection of connected details. Recounting consists of describing events in the order that they appear. Comparing falls under the umbrella of recounting. When students compare two things, they identify categories and find the differences between each thing being compared. There's also a section for similarities. Cause and effect falls under the umbrella of explaining. Students identify an event and describe the cause of that event occurring, acknowledging that there may be more than one cause that produces an effect. Problem solution falls under explain. We identify a problem that causes the problem and its effects. We then identify the solution and the reasons for offering that solution, and we identify the effects. Analyze falls under explain as well. We have students examine a topic and break down its essential parts. Each part is explained through evidence and details. We close the analysis by finding a connection between all the different parts. Argue is in its own category. Students produce a claim and produce reasons that support the claim. Each reason must show evidence for the claim to be reasonable. It's appropriate to recognize the opposing opinions and produce a rebuttal to their arguments as well. Students then end the argument with a closing statement. Claim, or CER, comes from the Next Generation Science Standards. It stands for Claim, Evidence, and Reason. We wanted to add, for our 5th graders, the C component to a CER paragraph, so now we call it CIRC. This helps students organize their ideas when they're trying to make a claim. Like in all of our writing, we provided digital anchor charts like this. I use these key uses mainly when students have to complete extended writing assessments. I give students these diagrams and then they plan their writing following the diagram. Scaffold discussions, I usually have students diagram out their ideas before talking. Template writing is another form of scaffolding comprehensible output. Each discipline has its own way of writing and structuring ideas. We can make the organization and the discipline-specific language of each discipline more explicit for EELs by producing them in a template for them to write in. This template sequences the unusual order of ideas and provides prompts in the form of sentence starters, frames, and tables that guide students' writing. This lab template that a science teacher and I created is used for students from grade 6 to grade 10 to help them produce a lab report. The sections are already organized and each section contains sentence frames and starters. Other sections include tables and diagrams. With this lab template, we no longer say that students shouldn't be part of our science classes and they should be warehoused in another room. I also use Google Slides to create templates for students to guide their writing. Each slide is one aspect that students need to write about. In this design sample, the teacher produces a series of slides that ultimately addresses students' mastery of the standard. As students work on each slide, they work on each aspect of the criteria. Template writing does not guarantee that students will perform perfectly. It simply ensures that the students will address each part of the assessment. The next strategy is table writing. This is my favorite strategy to teach extended writing. The table consists of 3 parts. The first part is the writing task. For example, during my 8th grade Renaissance unit, I asked students to describe what did people during the Renaissance value. For beginners, I often provide the topic sentence, and their job is to provide evidence that supports it. The second part of the table is the keyword section. This section contains all the words that support the topic sentence or answer the writing task. For our Renaissance example, it would be beauty, wisdom, and harmony. It serves as a mini brainstorm before writing. Students are less likely to say, "I don't know what to write about," when they have some ideas in the keyword section. The last section of the table is a space for them to take the keywords and use them to address the writing task. The last section of the table is a space for them to take the words and write them in their own sentences to help address the writing task. With this method, the writing process is more scaffolded and empowers ELs to produce ideas that are more connected, detailed, and focused on answering the topic. The table writing method can be used in the elementary school class as well. Create a table that contains the different parts of speech and that is sequenced in a complete sentence, such as noun, verb in detail, or adjective, noun, verb, preposition, reason for our more advanced writers. For each part of the speech, provide a list of words that come from the unit. Students can now compose their sentences in the correct order. I know many of my elementary school colleagues have hanging pocket charts. You can use them as a form of table writing. Each row is another idea supported by a transition word or a sentence stem and accompanied by a photo. Another approach to teaching content-based writing is by deconstructing the elements of a particular section of text. Once students realize the individual pieces, they can better structure their own writing to mirror them. A social studies teacher and I collaborated on a document that helped students to deconstruct an introduction, the body paragraph, and the conclusion for his 9th grade history class. For the introduction, we identified the parts and gave them each a different color. Then we provided a model paragraph. Students then read the introduction and looked for the individual parts. When they found one, they then highlighted the text with that respective color. We then provided students with sentence starters that represented each of the different parts, and students completed the sentence starters to craft their own versions. They could refer back to the model paragraph to help them write the introduction if needed. We continued this process to teach the body paragraph and the conclusion. You can use this process to help deconstruct the writing for your own discipline. Deconstructing writing is more effective than just giving students an exemplary text and then setting them to write. This process helps them internalize how ideas are organized and connected. For the last scaffold, I would like you to watch this video of my students writing. What did you notice about how they use Google Translate to help them? Most likely, your ELs have a more robust vocabulary in their native language than they do in English. Therefore, we should be using their home language as an asset. I encourage my students to translate words in their home language to English when writing to reduce the stress of communicating and to facilitate mutual understanding. Allowing Google Translate brings me to the broader topic of using students' home languages. Contrary to many English-only policies, there are many occasions to use home languages. Here are a few. I see students' home languages as the major pillar that holds up the bridge that closes the understanding gap. A student's home language is an asset that you can ignore, but at the great cost of learning and teaching. In the video you just watched, I compared language scaffolding to a bridge that closes the gap between what we want students to understand and what they want to communicate to us. Take this time to pause the video and to find an image that represents a metaphor for language scaffolding for you. Upload it to our Padlet and explain your metaphor in a brief description. I know all of these strategies made this video really long, but I wanted to share them with you because these are the strategies that I found most effective in helping us communicate our ideas to them and for them to communicate their ideas to us. Is there a strategy that you will use to make your content more comprehensible? Will you use a strategy to make their English more comprehensible to us? If you complete the optional assignment, which I hope you do, please make sure to complete the Google Slides document as well as the reflection. As always, please set your document to comment so that we can praise your work. I am so excited to see how you implement language scaffolding for your students. I'll see you for the group coaching session, and I'll see you for our last course next week, which is about emotional scaffolding. Have a great day.